In the year 2347, humanity's reach into the stars had grown vast but fragile. The dream of exploring new worlds and building a future among the stars was under threat. A powerful alien coalition known as the Krylos had declared war on humanity, pushing Earth's forces to the edge of defeat. Their ships were faster, their weapons deadlier, and their numbers overwhelming. On a small desolate moon called Epsilon 9, Captain Ethan Cole led what remained of his squadron after yet another crushing loss. Ethan was a man worn down by years of fighting. His once sharp uniform was now patched and stained with dirt, much like his spirit. He stood outside the battered remains of his ship, staring at the gray, lifeless landscape around him. The air was cold, and the silence was broken only by the distant hum of machinery from their makeshift base. The battle they had just escaped from had been brutal. Half his team was gone, either killed or captured by the Krylos. Supplies were running dangerously low, and morale was almost not. When the team returned to their base, the sight of the massive worm-like creature still fresh in their minds, they knew they had to act quickly. Captain Ethan Cole gathered the remaining officers in the command center, a cramped room filled with flickering screens and worn-out chairs. The atmosphere was tense as he explained what they had discovered on Epsilon 9. "There's something out there," Ethan said, his voice steady but tinged with urgency. "Something big. Something alive." Lieutenant Rachel Hayes frowned, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "You're suggesting we rely on some alien monster to save us? That's insane. We don't even know what it is or how dangerous it could be." Chief Engineer Daniel Parks, however, leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. "Dangerous? Sure. But think about it. If it's strong enough to shake the ground like that, imagine what it could do to the Krylos. Maybe this is exactly what we need." Rachel shook her head. "And what happens when it turns on us? What happens when it decides we're just as much of a threat as the Krylos?" The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of Rachel's words sinking in. General William Hart, an older man with graying hair and a stern expression, finally spoke up. "We're running out of options," he said bluntly. "If this thing can give us even a sliver of hope, we have to explore it. I'll authorize a mission to investigate further." Ethan nodded, relieved but still wary. He knew the risks, but he also knew they couldn't afford to ignore the possibility. With the general's approval, Ethan assembled a small team to return to the site where they had encountered the creature. Alongside him were Rachel, Daniel, and Laura Bennett, the medic who always seemed to keep a calm demeanor no matter how dire the situation. As they prepared for the journey, tensions ran high. Rachel remained skeptical, while Daniel was practically buzzing with excitement. This could change everything, he muttered under his breath as he checked the equipment. "We might actually have a chance." Laura, ever the voice of reason, tried to keep everyone grounded. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," she said gently. "We don't know anything about this thing yet. For all we know, it could see us as food." Her words did little to ease the unease hanging over the group, but they pressed on regardless. When they reached the area where the creature had emerged, the ground was scarred with deep trenches, evidence of its immense size and power. Ethan led the way cautiously, his weapon ready but his finger off the trigger. They didn't want to provoke it. Not yet. It wasn't long before they found signs of movement. The earth trembled slightly beneath their feet, and a low rumble echoed through the air. Then, without warning, the creature burst forth once more, rising from the ground like a living mountain. Its glowing scales shimmered faintly in the dim light, and its eyes locked onto them with an intensity that sent chills down their spines. For a moment, no one moved. The creature loomed above them, its sheer size making them feel insignificant. But instead of attacking, it paused, almost as if it were studying them. Ethan took a cautious step forward, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "We're not here to hurt you," he said softly, knowing the creature couldn't understand him, but hoping it might sense his intentions. "We just want to talk." To everyone's surprise, the creature didn't strike. It lowered its massive head slightly, its glowing eyes narrowing as if trying to process what Ethan was saying. Daniel quickly pulled out a scanner, analyzing the vibrations emanating from the creature. "It's communicating," he whispered excitedly. "These frequencies. It's trying to talk to us." Rachel, still hesitant, stepped closer. "Talk? Or warn us?" Before anyone could answer, the creature let out a deep, resonant sound that vibrated through the ground. It wasn't aggressive. It felt more like a question. Ethan exchanged a glance with the others, realizing they had stumbled onto something extraordinary. "Maybe it's not our enemy," Ethan said quietly. "Maybe it's our best shot at survival." The team stood there, staring up at the towering beast, unsure of what would come next. But for the first time in a long while, they allowed themselves to feel a flicker of hope. The team stood frozen, staring up at the massive creature that towered above them. Its glowing scales shimmered faintly in the dim light of Epsilon 9's surface, and its deep, resonant sounds echoed through the air. Ethan Cole took a slow step forward, his hand still raised to show he meant no harm. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. This moment was too important to let fear take over. "It's not attacking," Daniel Parks whispered, his voice trembling with excitement as he adjusted the scanner in his hand. "It's waiting." Rachel Hayes stayed a few steps back, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She didn't trust this creature, no matter how curious it seemed. "Waiting for what?" she muttered under her breath. "For us to lower our guard so it can strike." Ethan ignored her comment and focused on the creature. He noticed something he hadn't before. Its movements were deliberate, almost cautious. It wasn't acting like a mindless predator. Instead, it seemed to be observing them, studying their reactions. Taking another step closer, Ethan spoke again, his voice calm and steady. "We're not here to hurt you," he repeated, hoping the tone of his words would carry some meaning, even if the creature couldn't understand the language. "We just want to understand." The creature tilted its massive head slightly, as if considering his words, or perhaps sensing his emotions. Then, without warning, it let out another low rumble, this one softer than before. The sound vibrated through the ground beneath their feet, making the team exchange uneasy glances. "What is it doing?" Laura Bennett asked, gripping her medical kit tightly. Her voice betrayed a mix of curiosity and fear. Daniel's eyes lit up as he checked the readings on his scanner. "It's responding to us. These vibrations, they're like signals. It's trying to communicate." Rachel rolled her eyes but said nothing. She still wasn't convinced this was anything more than a dangerous animal testing its prey. Still, she couldn't deny the intelligence in the creature's gaze. It wasn't the blank stare of a beast. It was sharp, calculating, and aware. Ethan took another step forward, closing the gap between him and the creature. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small piece of mineral they had found earlier during their exploration. It was shiny and reflective, catching the faint light around them. Holding it up carefully, Ethan extended his arm toward the creature. "Here," he said softly. "This might be something you want." The creature hesitated for a moment, its massive body swaying slightly. Then, with surprising gentleness, it lowered its head and sniffed at the mineral. A low hum vibrated through the air as it opened its mouth just enough to take the offering from Ethan's hand. The team held their breath, watching as the creature examined the mineral closely before swallowing it whole. "Well, that's a start," Daniel said, letting out a shaky laugh. "It likes shiny things." Laura smiled faintly, though her grip on her medical kit didn't loosen. "Let's hope it likes us too." Rachel remained silent, her skepticism unwavering. But even she couldn't deny that something remarkable was happening. The creature hadn't attacked them, and it seemed genuinely interested in what they had to offer. Encouraged by this small victory, Ethan decided to push further. He gestured for Daniel to bring out more samples of minerals they had collected. One by one, they presented them to the creature, which responded with the same careful curiosity. Each time it accepted an offering, it emitted a low, contented rumble that vibrated through the ground. As the hours passed, the team began to notice patterns in the creature's behavior. It reacted differently to certain minerals, humming louder or quieter depending on what was offered. Daniel scribbled notes furiously, trying to decode the meaning behind the vibrations. "This is incredible," he murmured, barely containing his excitement. "It's not just intelligent. It's communicating with us. We just need to figure out how." By the end of the day, exhaustion weighed heavily on the team, but there was a newfound sense of hope in the air. They had made contact, not with hostility, but with understanding. As they packed up to return to base, Ethan glanced back at the creature one last time. It watched them leave, its glowing eyes following their every move. For the first time in months, Ethan felt a spark of optimism. Maybe, just maybe, they had found an ally in the most unexpected form. Back at the research outpost, the team worked tirelessly to understand the massive creature they had encountered. They called it Titan, a name suggested by Laura Bennett, after witnessing its colossal size and strength. The name stuck quickly, and soon everyone was referring to the creature as if it were part of their team. But understanding Titan wasn't easy. It was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Daniel Parks spent hours analyzing the data from his scanner, trying to decode the patterns in Titan's vibrations. He set up equipment near the tunnels where Titan often rested, recording every sound it made. "It's not random noise," he explained one evening as the team gathered around a flickering holographic display. "There's structure here, patterns that repeat. It's like a language." Rachel Hayes, still skeptical but intrigued, leaned closer to examine the readings. "A language? You're saying this thing talks?" "Not in the way we do," Daniel replied, adjusting his glasses. "But yes, it communicates. These vibrations carry meaning. We just need to figure out what they mean." Ethan Cole listened quietly, his mind racing. If they could truly communicate with Titan, it might change everything, not just for their survival, but for how humanity interacted with alien life. "Can we teach it to understand us?" he asked finally. Daniel hesitated. "Maybe, but it'll take time. We'd need to find a way to translate our words into something it can grasp." Laura chimed in, her voice calm and steady. "What about using actions? Animals learn through repetition and association. Maybe Titan can too." The idea sparked a new plan. Over the next few days, the team focused on building trust with Titan. Ethan took the lead, spending hours near the creature's lair, offering minerals and speaking softly. At first, Titan seemed cautious, watching Ethan closely before accepting the gifts. But as time went on, it began responding more openly, humming gently whenever Ethan approached. Rachel joined in reluctantly, carrying supplies and helping set up experiments. She still didn't fully trust Titan, but she couldn't deny the progress they were making. One day, while observing from a safe distance, she noticed something remarkable. When Ethan held up a piece of mineral and said the word food, Titan paused, tilted its massive head, and then reached out to take it. "Did you see that?" Rachel exclaimed, pointing at the creature. It reacted to what he said. Ethan smiled faintly, though he remained cautious. It might not understand the exact word, but it's associating the sound with the action. That's a start. Encouraged by this breakthrough, the team expanded their efforts. They created simple commands, pairing words with specific actions. For example, when Ethan pointed toward a pile of rocks and said, "Move," Titan eventually pushed them aside, responding to both the gesture and the sound. Each success brought them closer to forming a real connection. Despite the progress, challenges remained. Titan was intelligent, but it was also wild and unpredictable. There were moments when it grew restless, retreating deep into the tunnels or letting out low warning rumbles. During these times, the team backed off, giving the creature space. Ethan knew pushing too hard could destroy the fragile bond they were building. One evening, as the team reviewed their findings, General William Hart arrived unexpectedly. His face was grim as he addressed them. We don't have much time. The Krylos are planning another attack, and we're running out of options. Ethan stood, meeting the general's gaze. We're working on it. Titan is learning to respond to us. With more time. We don't have more time, Hart interrupted sharply. If this creature can fight, we need it ready now. Rachel stepped forward, her voice firm. You can't rush this. If we push Titan too far, it could turn against us. Trust takes time. Hart frowned, but nodded reluctantly. Fine, but make it quick. We're counting on you. As the general left, the weight of responsibility settled heavily on the team. They all knew what was at stake. Failure meant the end, not just for them, but for humanity itself. Yet, amidst the pressure, there was hope. Titan wasn't just a weapon, it was a partner, however unlikely. And with each passing day, the bond between man and beast grew stronger. The pressure to prepare Titan for battle was mounting, but Ethan Cole and his team knew they couldn't rush the process. General Hart's visit had made it clear that time was running out, but forcing Titan into combat too soon could destroy the fragile trust they had built. Instead, they focused on strengthening their connection with the creature, hoping it would respond when the moment came. One morning, Ethan stood near Titan's lair, holding a piece of glowing mineral in his hand. Come on, he said softly, waving the mineral gently. You know what this is. Titan emerged slowly from the shadows, its massive body moving with surprising grace. It lowered its head, sniffing at the mineral before taking it carefully from Ethan's hand. As it chewed, Ethan smiled faintly. Good. Now, let's try something new. He pointed toward a large boulder nearby and said, Push. At first, Titan didn't move. Its glowing eyes studied Ethan intently, as if trying to understand. Ethan repeated the command, this time gesturing more clearly. After a moment, Titan lumbered forward and nudged the boulder with its snout, sending it rolling across the ground. Yes, Daniel Parks exclaimed from a safe distance, scribbling notes furiously. It's getting better. Rachel Hayes watched silently, her arms crossed. She still wasn't comfortable with the idea of using Titan as a weapon, but she couldn't deny the progress they were making. It's smart, she admitted reluctantly. But is it enough? Ethan didn't answer. He knew they were running out of time, but he also knew pushing Titan too hard could backfire. They needed to find a balance. Train it without breaking its spirit. Over the next few days, the team worked on expanding Titan's understanding of commands. They taught it to follow simple directions like stop, go, and turn. Each success brought them closer to their goal, but it was slow and painstaking work. Titan wasn't just learning. It was adapting, showing signs of intelligence far beyond what anyone had expected. Finally, General Hart ordered a field test to see how Titan would perform in a simulated battle scenario. The team reluctantly agreed, though Rachel voiced her concerns loudly. This is too soon, she argued. We're not ready, and neither is Titan. We don't have a choice, Ethan replied firmly. If we wait any longer, the Krylos will crush us. This is our only shot. The simulation took place on a barren stretch of Epsilon 9, designed to mimic the chaos of an actual battlefield. Titan was guided into position, its massive form towering over the human soldiers. Ethan stood nearby, giving commands through a handheld device that emitted low-frequency vibrations Titan had learned to recognize. When the exercise began, Titan moved with astonishing speed and power. It tore through mock enemy targets with ease, obliterating them in seconds. The soldiers watched in awe as the creature unleashed its full potential, its glowing scales shimmering in the dim light. For a brief moment, it seemed unstoppable. But then, something went wrong. A group of soldiers accidentally fired their weapons near Titan, startling it. The creature let out a deep, warning rumble and retreated into defensive posturing, its massive tail sweeping across the ground. The simulation ground to a halt as everyone scrambled to calm Titan down. Ethan rushed forward, speaking softly and holding up a piece of mineral. "It's okay," he said, his voice steady despite the tension. "You're safe." Slowly, Titan calmed, lowering its head to accept the offering. But the incident left the team shaken. They had pushed Titan too far, too fast. Later that night, Ethan sat alone, staring at the stars. Rachel approached him, her expression softer than usual. "You did your best," she said quietly, "but we can't keep treating Titan like a tool. It's more than that." Ethan nodded, his jaw tight. "I know, but if we don't figure this out, we'll lose everything." Rachel hesitated before speaking again. "Maybe there's another way. Maybe we don't need to control it. Maybe we just need to trust it." Her words lingered in Ethan's mind as he gazed at the horizon. Trust. It was a risk, but it might be their only hope. The Krylos fleet descended upon Epsilon 9 with terrifying speed, their ships blotting out the sky. The human forces scrambled to prepare for the inevitable assault, knowing this battle would decide the fate of their resistance. Captain Ethan Cole stood at the edge of the battlefield, his heart pounding as he watched the enemy ships grow larger on the horizon. Beside him, Titan rested quietly, its massive body coiled like a living mountain. The creature's glowing scales reflected the faint light, and its eyes glimmered with an intelligence that still awed Ethan. "We can't do this without you," Ethan whispered, more to himself than to Titan. He reached out and placed a hand on the creature's cool, scaled hide. Titan shifted slightly, letting out a low hum that vibrated through the ground. It was a sound of reassurance, as if it understood what was about to happen. General William Hart approached, his face grim but determined. "It's time," he said simply. "We've positioned our forces, but we need Titan in the front lines. Can you make it work?" Ethan nodded, though doubt gnawed at the edges of his mind. They had trained Titan to respond to commands, but this wasn't a simulation, it was real. Lives depended on their bond, and Ethan couldn't shake the fear that they were asking too much of the creature. As the first wave of Krylos fighters touched down, chaos erupted across the battlefield. Explosions lit up the dark landscape, and the air filled with the deafening roar of weapons fire. Ethan took a deep breath and turned to Titan. "Let's go," he said firmly, his voice cutting through the noise. He activated the handheld device that emitted the low-frequency vibrations Titan had learned to recognize. Titan rose to its full height, its sheer size casting a shadow over the battlefield. For a moment, everything seemed to pause. The humans and the Krylos alike stared in awe at the legendary predator. Then, with a thunderous roar, Titan surged forward, charging into the heart of the enemy forces. Ethan ran alongside the creature, shouting commands and guiding it toward key targets. Titan moved with devastating precision, obliterating Krylos vehicles and tearing through their defenses. Its massive tail swept across the ground, sending enemy soldiers flying, while its glowing scales deflected incoming fire. The humans followed closely behind, striking weakened positions and capitalizing on the chaos Titan created. Lieutenant Rachel Hayes watched from a distance, her breath catching in her throat. She had always doubted the plan, fearing they were exploiting Titan, but now she saw something different. Titan wasn't just a weapon, it was fighting alongside them, responding not out of coercion, but out of trust. When Ethan signaled for Titan to target a Krylos command center, the creature didn't hesitate. It unleashed a burst of energy, collapsing the structure and crippling the invaders' coordination. But the battle wasn't without cost. Titan sustained injuries as it pushed deeper into the fray, its scales scorched and cracked from enemy fire. Ethan's heart sank as he noticed the creature slowing, its movements becoming labored. "Hold on," he shouted, his voice breaking. "Just a little longer." Titan let out a pained rumble, but pressed on, driven by the bond it shared with Ethan. Together, they broke through the Krylos lines, forcing the alien forces into retreat. As the last of the enemy ships flooded into the sky, the battlefield fell silent, save for the crackling of flames and the groans of wounded soldiers. Ethan collapsed to his knees beside Titan, tears streaming down his face as he placed a hand on the creature's side. "You did it," he choked out. "You saved us." Rachel approached cautiously, her expression softening as she looked at Titan. Maybe it's not just about using it," she said quietly. "Maybe it's about working together." Titan let out a weak hum, its glowing eyes dimming slightly. Ethan knew the creature needed rest and healing, but for now, they had won. Against all odds, humanity had turned the tide of war, thanks to the strength and loyalty of an unlikely ally. The battle was over, but the cost weighed heavily on everyone. Titan lay near the edge of the battlefield, its massive body battered and scarred from the fight. The glowing patterns on its scales had dimmed, and its breathing came in slow, labored bursts. Ethan Cole knelt beside the creature, his hands trembling as he pressed a damp cloth against one of its wounds. He couldn't bear to look away, afraid that if he did, Titan might slip away forever. "We need to stabilize it," Laura Bennett said urgently, her voice tight with worry. She worked quickly, applying medical gel to Titan's injuries, while Daniel Parks monitored its vital signs using portable scanners. "It's strong, but even it has limits." Rachel Hayes stood nearby, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She watched silently as the team worked to save Titan, her earlier doubts replaced by guilt. She had argued against involving the creature in the war, fearing they were exploiting it. Now, seeing Titan injured because of their decisions, she felt responsible. "Will it make it?" Rachel asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Laura glanced up, her expression grim but determined. "We're doing everything we can, but it's going to take time, and a lot of care." Ethan didn't speak. His focus was entirely on Titan, his mind replaying every moment of the battle. He remembered how the creature had pushed through pain to protect them, how it had trusted him even when the odds seemed impossible. "You saved us," he murmured, his voice cracking. "Now it's our turn to save you." General William Hart arrived shortly after, his face lined with exhaustion. He surveyed the scene, his gaze lingering on Titan's weakened form. "Is it going to pull through?" he asked bluntly. "We don't know yet," Ethan replied without looking up. His tone carried an edge of frustration, though he kept his emotions in check. "But if we hadn't pushed it so hard, maybe it wouldn't be like this." Hart hesitated, then nodded slowly. "You're right. We asked too much of it, and of all of you. But what's done is done. For now, focus on keeping it alive." As the hours passed, the team worked tirelessly to tend to Titan's wounds. They set up a makeshift shelter nearby, shielding the creature from the harsh environment of Epsilon 9. Ethan stayed by its side, refusing to leave even when others urged him to rest. He spoke softly to Titan, recounting stories of Earth and the stars, hoping the sound of his voice would bring comfort. Titan responded faintly, its low hums growing weaker but still present. It was a sign of life, a fragile thread holding on. Ethan took it as a good omen, clinging to the hope that Titan would recover. Meanwhile, word of the battle spread quickly among the human forces. News of Titan's role in the victory inspired awe and gratitude. Soldiers who had once doubted the plan now spoke of the creature with reverence, calling it a guardian and a savior. Even General Hart seemed to soften, acknowledging that Titan wasn't just a tool, it was a partner. Days turned into weeks as Titan slowly began to heal. Its glowing scales regained some of their brightness, and its movements became less strained. Ethan spent every waking moment with the creature, feeding it minerals and speaking to it gently. He could see the trust between them growing stronger, forged not just in battle but in the aftermath. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a pale glow over the landscape, Rachel approached Ethan. She sat down beside him, her expression thoughtful. "I was wrong about it," she admitted quietly. "About Titan. I thought we were using it, but it chose to help us. It trusted us." Ethan nodded, his eyes fixed on Titan's massive form. "It did. And now we have to prove that trust was worth it." Rachel fell silent, watching as Titan let out a soft rumble. almost like a sigh. The creature's recovery was far from complete, but there was hope, not just for Titan, but for humanity. Together, they had faced the impossible and emerged victorious. And as Ethan gazed at the creature that had changed everything, he knew their bond would shape the future in ways no one could have imagined. As Titan's recovery progressed, the team began to reflect on what had happened and what it meant for humanity's future. The creature was no longer just a symbol of hope. It had become a reminder of the choices they had made, and the ones they still needed to make. Ethan Cole spent most of his time near Titan, ensuring it received the care it needed. But he also found himself thinking about the bigger picture. Using Titan as a weapon had saved them, but at what cost? Was this really the path they wanted to take? One afternoon, Rachel Hayes approached Ethan as he sat beside Titan, feeding it small pieces of mineral. "We need to talk," she said, her voice firm but calm. Ethan looked up, sensing the seriousness in her tone. "About what?" "About what comes next," Rachel replied. She gestured toward Titan. "This creature trusted us, Ethan. It fought with us because it believed in what we were doing. But now people are already talking about how to use it again, how to turn it into a weapon for the next battle." Ethan frowned, his grip tightening on the mineral in his hand. He had heard the whispers too, soldiers and officers speculating about Titan's potential in future conflicts. General Hart had even hinted at plans to integrate the creature more fully into their military strategy. The thought made Ethan uneasy, but he hadn't voiced his concerns yet. "We can't let that happen," Rachel continued. "If we keep using Titan like this, we're no better than the Krylos. We'll be exploiting it, just like they exploit everything else." Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know, but how do we stop it? People see Titan as our best chance at survival. They won't give that up easily." Rachel hesitated, then spoke softly. "Maybe we don't have to give it up. Maybe we find another way. A way where Titan isn't just a tool, but a partner. A real ally." Her words lingered in Ethan's mind. He glanced at Titan, who was watching them with glowing eyes. The creature had shown incredible intelligence and loyalty, but it wasn't human. It didn't understand war or politics. All it knew was trust, the bond it had formed with Ethan and the team. Breaking that bond would destroy not just Titan, but everything they had worked so hard to build. Later that evening, Ethan brought the issue to General Hart. The general listened silently as Ethan explained his concerns. When Ethan finished, Hart leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "You're asking me to hold back our greatest advantage," he said finally. "Do you realize what that means?" "I do," Ethan replied firmly. "But if we lose sight of why we're fighting, if we turn Titan into nothing more than a weapon, we've already lost. This isn't just about winning battles. It's about proving we're worth saving." Hart studied him for a long moment before nodding slowly. "All right. For now, we'll focus on healing Titan and building a stronger relationship with it. But if the Krylos come back, I can't promise we won't need its help again." Ethan accepted the compromise, knowing it was the best he could hope for. Over the following weeks, the team shifted their focus from training Titan to simply spending time with it. They brought it food, played sounds it enjoyed, and even experimented with new ways to communicate. Titan responded positively, its hums growing stronger and more frequent. The soldiers stationed on Epsilon 9 began to see Titan differently too. Instead of a weapon, they started treating it like a guardian, a living legend that deserved respect. Children from nearby colonies visited, marveling at the massive creature and leaving drawings as gifts. Titan seemed to enjoy the attention, lowering its head to sniff at the colorful pictures. For the first time since the war began, there was a sense of peace, not just on the battlefield, but within the hearts of those who had fought so hard to survive. Ethan watched it all unfold, feeling a quiet pride. Titan wasn't just a symbol of strength. It was a bridge between humanity and something greater. And as long as that bond remained intact, there was hope for a brighter future.